Joining me today to discuss the Hong Kong government's latest budget are Regina Ip, convener of the Executive Council, and Allan Zeman, chairman of Lan Kwai Fong Group. Welcome. This is a tough year for Financial Secretary Paul Chan, as Hong Kong needs strong incentives to come out of COVID shadow, while at the same time needs to prevent the fiscal deficit from being out of control. In the baskets of measures, the new round of consumption voucher is definitely a highlight. 5,000 Hong Kong dollars for each resident, half of that for non-residents. Regina, you are one of the few politicians who are actually against rolling out spending vouchers. And as you said, that Hong Kong is already going back to normal. So are you disappointed that the government is spending the money this way?
I won't describe the consumption vouchers as one of the highlights of the budget. I don't think it's long-term sustainable, and I don't think the financial secretary will repeat this measure every year. I think he's agreed to issue consumption vouchers again because we are still at an early stage of the economic recovery. And we can give it a little push by giving everybody $5,000 to spend over several months. I think the other more notable features are. Number one, the reintroduction of the Capital Investment Entrance Scheme, which was first introduced in 2003 on my watch, suspended in 2015, and now reintroduced. Now we have lost quite a number of people in the past few years, as well as they also took away a lot of money. So I think it is the right time to reactivate the scheme and to specify. The government will specify the investment should not go into property in order not to overstimulate the property sector, but into other forms of financial products or high-tech projects as designated by the government. I think this is an important measure.
Before going to other issues, Allan, I'm quite sure the previous round of consumption voucher has boosted the catering and hospitality sectors, but will the effect diminish? Because in this year, people start going out spending overseas.
Sure. I think that that has kind of slowed down a bit where people have gone overseas. Of course, when we first opened up, everybody it was like being let out of prison, and you're off parole. So I mean, almost everyone in Hong Kong was going abroad or going out of Hong Kong just to keep their sanity. But I think that at the moment, I think things have settled down a bit. Those that are going out, it's normal. I think the 5,000 consumption, while I do agree with, I was against it as well. I do agree with Regina, but we can't keep doing it, and things are getting better. I mean, I just need to tell you that in Lan Kwai Fong, basically, which I can speak of, December, January, and February were record months for us, better than pre-COVID days. And that was really something I couldn't believe. But so many people, locals out, a lot of mainland tourists in the area, and also a lot of actually some Taiwanese as well. And so we're quite surprised, but it has been very, very good. So basically, but I do understand some of the people, it has not been as good for them. And I think Paul, what he wanted to do is just give a 5,000 because there's so much controversy about it. Some people for it, some people against it. I think it kind of he cut it in half and kind of hopes to satisfy those that really were for it.
Yeah, I agree with, sorry.
Yeah, please go on, Regina.
Oh, I agree with Allan. The $5,000 probably is, the impact is more psychological than real. It adds to the feel-good factor. I heard that hotel occupancy is back to 80%, restaurants, bars have been very full, and there are already advertisements telling people how to use the consumption voucher to buy even air tickets and overseas travel services, that sort of thing. So there could be quite a leakage of the amount to other economies. But anyway, that would help boost the feel-good factor in our society.
Yeah, you talked about feel good factor. I hope to talk about the new Happy Hong Kong campaign. Allan, you were appointed to be a member of the task force led by Paul Chan to promote and brand Hong Kong. So do you think this new campaign can convince people overseas that Hong Kong is able to catch up with the rest of the world, that to move on and to revive? What do you think?
I think Happy Hong Kong actually meets Hello Hong Kong. I think they go hand in hand. People, I think the loudest noise that was made was the 800,000 free airline tickets that were in the previous announcement by the government, helped along by the airport authority. I think that made a lot of noise around the world. I did an interview with French TV last 2 weeks ago, just after the announcement, and the reporters, she showed me a page of all the French newspapers, and the headlines was Hong Kong to issue 500,000 free airline tickets. She was asking me, how can I get it? So that made a lot of noise, basically. I think people know now that Hong Kong is open, and the fact that China opened as well, and really things are, they don't even wear masks in China. I was there last week. And so in essence, there is that factor. The thing is as well that the government now has announced that there's going to be a lot of events, a lot of attractions, international events, whether it's economic business, whether it's artists from all over China, all over Hong Kong, cultural facilities, all these things really is what makes Hong Kong very special. And the more people that come to these events this coming year, really, they go home and they say, wow. And I've heard that from so many tourists that have come.
But after
Hong Kong is open, yeah.
But after the rolling out of the Hello Hong Kong campaign, one major critic is that we lack new tourism spots for people to come. So do you think the new Happy Hong Kong campaign can really make a difference?
I really do. I really think that the announcement of cultural events, one thing we have now is the Palace Museum and M+, which many tourists have not seen, and that is world class. I mean, I've been with M+ and West Kowloon for 20 years, I think, from the beginning, and it's really something very special. And a lot of people who come over now, they ask, can you get me tickets? How can I go to see it, and that kind of thing. So I think that's one thing. And the different events, the events are different for everyone, but they announce a lot of events. There's going to be hundreds of events this year, and it'll appeal to everyone. And so I think that we're really going in the right direction. I really think that the more people that come to Hong Kong, and the more even mainlanders, they've always been the bulk of our tourists in the past. And the more they come and they see and they experience Hong Kong, and the faster we get rid of the mask, I think that in general, things will be very good. I'm really looking for a bumper year.
Okay. Well, when we go back to talk a little bit more general about the budget measures, one critic that immediately come out is the absence of something really creative and then eye-catching measures. Do you agree so, Regina?
I don't agree with that at all. I think a lot of because Hong Kong is a very consumer-oriented society, so a lot of people overlook the vast amount of resources poured into boosting high-tech development and high-quality development, training, pouring into upgrading of skills. There's the emphasis on digital economy, the development of frontier technologies, AI supercomputing center, and the microelectronic center, all this really to boost the digital transformation of our economy. So I think we really need to focus more on these groundbreaking measures. They are very important to Hong Kong in the long term.
From your perspective, anything missing in this budget?
Well, I think what's missing from this budget is family-friendly measures to boost our fertility. For example, we recommended tax deduction for the employment of foreign domestic helpers. It's not just our party, many parties, many from LegCo, many of my colleagues have recommended a deduction for foreign domestic helpers. They are really the backbone of our middle-class families. And Hong Kong's fertility rate is very low, 0.77%. We recorded the lowest fertility rate recently. And I think the government should do what other governments have done, give more tax deduction for having more babies, and also give financial support for women to employ reproductive techniques to have babies at a later age. That's what we should do. Actually, long waiting lines for such assistance at government clinics.
Yeah, we saw some of your proposals to the government has triggered quite a lot of discussion online regarding those that you just mentioned. And one follow-up question for Regina. One surprise in this budget is the imposition of an annual special football betting duty of 2.4 billion Hong Kong dollars on the Jockey Club. And the measure is a bit different from what your party proposed, to have it increased from 50 to 80%. So how do you see the Jockey Club's warning that the hike would create structural measures irreversibly damaging its competitiveness?
I think the Jockey Club has failed to produce any really quantitative arguments for this assertion. Back in 1999 and 2003, when the government had substantial budget deficits, the government also hiked betting duty. And in 2006, the government changed the policy so that the government will only raise betting duty on the net income, of the Jockey Club. And don't forget, Jockey Club has a monopoly on gambling. I don't think just handing over 2.4 billion to the government for 5 years will affect their competitiveness at all. They could do other things to boost their competitiveness, such as increasing what they give back to the punters. There are many ways of doing it. They shouldn't blame this 2.4 billion for affecting the competitiveness.
But they have another worry. Do you think the worry of worsening illegal and offshore betting substantiate?
This is a recurrent argument that the Jockey Club has put forward to counter any suggestion of raising betting duty. I think the Jockey Club will simply have to do better to offer more incentives to the punters to patronize the Jockey Club rather than use illegal gambling platforms.
Allan, what's your take?
I think that Regina is absolutely right, especially with that. I mean, I know a little bit about betting. I am the non-executive chairman of WIN in Macau. And so I think that, we do have a deficit. The last number of years, we've been helping the economy, helping the people of Hong Kong to get through those difficult years. And we need a place where we have a lot of income coming in. And I think that the Jockey Club, it should not affect them to any great extent, because there's other promotions, there's other things that they can do. Of course, it's easier to just continue to bring in the money. They do an excellent job for Hong Kong. We're very proud of it. But still, I think that they're one organization that the government can turn to in order to be more creative in some of the other ways they have of increasing their betting and getting more money to make up for it. So I think I do agree with Regina. I think that in that respect, and I know the Jockey Club will be very adamant against it, but I think that honestly, there's no other place, very little other places that they can immediately get such a big chunk of money, aside from raising taxes, which we don't want to see.
Yeah, the argument is that now we have the new special duty targeting the gambling industry. But in general, do we need other sources of revenues for the government?
The government actually has not fiddled with the level of the betting duty on the Jockey Club's stakes. government probably thinks it needs more time to study the structure of the betting duty. So what it has probably reached an agreement with the Jockey Club to take 2.4 billion for 5 years, rather than fiddling with the level of the betting duty on football and leaving horse racing untouched at all.
Do you think this issue, because we can see the strong criticism or the opposition from the Jockey Club, do you see this issue will be a growing controversy within all other budget measures?
Well, the betting duty affects a small numbers of people. It basically only affects the Jockey Club. It doesn't affect the punters at all, And, taxes, duties on tobacco and drinking and betting, actually, in other parts of the world, they are categorized as sin tax, in quote, sin tax, as opposed to GST on bread and butter, that sort of thing. So this is the sort of forms of tax governments normally resort to when they are short of money. And it's not as sweeping, far less sweeping than a GST or value-added tax, And of course, I received proposals from university medical students for imposing tax on sugared beverages. I think New York City has imposed tax on trans fats. Is that right, Alan? It says to promote good health. I think Financial Secretary has received this proposal, but implementation will be very tricky. And the government will need to look at it very carefully and do consultation before it introduces this sort of new forms of taxation.
Listen, the government's already looked at the cigarette industry, and increased tax on the cigarette industry, which in effect I agree with wholeheartedly, because it's a very bad thing for the public, and the faster we can eliminate that. So I think there, in general, I'm pretty happy with what has been presented. I mean, it's probably the best budget that Paul Chan has ever done since he's there. And I think from my side, I think that we are a recovering society at the moment from 4 difficult years actually. And I think that he did everything possible, and I tried to go to almost every industry and look at how we could help almost all of the people in Hong Kong. So everybody in general has been, you'll always have people that are unhappy, and there's always going to be, what did he leave out, and that kind of thing. But in general, if the majority are happy, you'll never make everybody happy. That much I've learned being a public figure. But as long as you make the majority happy, then you've done a good job.
Let's move on to talk about the big issue of fiscal sustainability. This year, the fiscal deficit climbed to 54.4 billion Hong Kong dollars. And in the budget, Paul Chan says he is well aware that we need to avoid deficit under the Article 107 of the Basic Law. But then the government needs an increased expenditure to relieve pressure of the people. But Regina, do you still worry that a long-term deficit may affect Hong Kong's ratings, as you said before?
Well, the Financial Secretary doesn't seem to think that we will have a long-term structural deficit. In concluding his budget speech, he said that there will be a deficit in 23 and 24. In the next 4 years, we should be able to balance the budget and even have a surplus. And the non-recurrent account will have a deficit in the next 4 or 5 years, but in 27, 28, the non-recurrent account will achieve a surplus. So I don't think he's predicting a long-term structural deficit. But that, of course, depends on our economic growth rate. To what extent we can bounce back from the doldrums of the past 3 years and the wider geopolitical environment.
I agree with that. As well. He's predicting that the coming year, the next 2 years, will be growth area of 3.5 to 5%. Which I think we'll be back again. We'll start to bring money into the coffers, and as well, it seems that the property market does seem to be turning. The confidence for people is there, and as well, mainland Chinese are now, the borders open, and mainland Chinese that never came for 3 years are now able to come here. I do believe that, again, just prediction of my own, that income, which was lacking for the past couple of years for the government's budget, will help to really narrow the gap of always having deficits. And I think that that's really something that I'm really looking forward to. And I think the recovery will be quicker than we all think, as happened around the world. There's pent-up demand. A lot of people could not spend in mainland China for, I would say, for 3 years. They just kept putting money in the bank. And now the money's coming out, and there's pent-up demand. So I really think that we will potentially see faster growth than we actually anticipate.
Yeah, time will tell how the government's budget will work out this year. As we are running out of time, thank you so much for giving us all the insights. And thanks again for joining us, Regina and Allan.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.